We're going to kick off with a story that has to do with education. Now, last academic year, the Abu Dhabi's Department of Education and Knowledge set out its digital policy with full compliance expected by the start of this academic year. And that policy calls for schools to invest in students' digital skills, competencies, also to educate students on responsible and safe access online. So schools are expected to make sure personal data is handled securely and have tighter controls across their communications channels and groups. And with students back to school in 1 month, the countdown is now on as they prepare to head back to class. Experts, though, are saying they are becoming increasingly a high-value target for cybercriminals. So we wanted to dig into this a little bit further. We're joined now in studio by Nikola Kukoljac as Vice President of Solutions Architecture at Help AG. This is a cybersecurity arm of E& Enterprise. Nikola, thanks for joining us on the show today.
It's a pleasure being here today. Thank you.
You know, you usually think of younger age groups as being a bit more savvy when it comes to scammers, tricksters online. Why do you feel that students are becoming more of a target for cybercrime than they were before?
To be honest, it's a very good question, by the way. The not only students, and I will come back to the students, actually who the real target is the parents.
Okay.
Because, and I will tell you why. Think about it as cybercrime is very, very much similar to any other business. And bear with me when I say this, and by the way, it's very wrong as well. But if you have an environment where you want to open a food restaurant, you're going to find an environment where you don't have a lot of other food restaurants, but you also have a lot of people being there. Now, how is this related to what I'm saying? It's very simple. You have an environment where you have a huge amount of people that are very vulnerable and they have to pay a good amount of money for school fees. Mm-hmm. So it's a very easy target to target these people. And as a cyber criminal, you simply want to do as least as possible to get as much value as you can. And this is the reason why we are seeing these attacks in the region as well. They're quite growing because our UE is actually quite advanced in digitalization. Mm-hmm. Everything is digital, websites, applications. So the attack vector, 100% attack vector is so wide.
Right.
So this is the reason we're seeing it.
Tell us about the specific attacks you have in mind when you're talking about parents. You mentioned that they have to pay a lot for school fees. So they already have that expectation that there's a lot of fees coming from the school. What are some of the different attacks that we're currently seeing and which ones are really trending up?
That's also a good question. I will tell you an example. All the parents are getting the emails from the schools, for example, with school fees. Imagine that you get an email from the email address that is very similar to what the email address of the school is, but it's an actual attacker. And it tells you, if you pay now, in next 2 days, you're going to achieve discount of 10-15%.
Right.
The thing is, often people who work there, when they're in the office, they have an office mindset and they're ready to take a look, and now they're educated, and enterprises are investing quite a lot in the cyber assurance and to make sure that the employees are good. But when we are at home and we get something on our Gmail or Yahoo, and also coming from the school, you're definitely much more relaxed.
And so often these kinds of, it's a good thing you're here talking about this, because these kinds of things catch you off guard when you haven't heard about that specific kind of attack. So what you're describing, we've seen that in the post of Emirates Post. There was a big time where you kept getting different supposedly Emirates Post emails to pay for a package. And it looked like a small account. We all get packages all the time. So you just didn't think about it. I have a colleague here who has admitted that he lost a lot of money to one of these scams. And he's a very savvy individual. It can happen to anybody when you're in a rush. And also, you mentioned there the emotional aspect of getting a 10% discount on your school fees is no small thing. That just seems like a gift that you don't want to miss. So it's also playing on your emotions.
100%, correct. And again, it comes from the school. What is a safer place than the school? You always assume that your kid's in a safe place. It's come from a quote-unquote original school email. What is there to check? That's the reason why people are doing it. That's the reason they're clicking on it. And the thing is, it's not only, these attacks are not going only towards the parents. They're also going to the school. Think about it. When you're signing up a kid for a school, you're giving your documents, kids' documents, and health records. And all these 3 categories are for life. They're not something that's going to expire. They're there for life. That's a lot of critical data within the school. That's also a very, very attractive place to attack as well. This is the reason we are seeing the attacks towards schools.
Well, tell me more about how those attacks work when it comes to stealing data about not just the students, but about the entire families involved here. How exactly, what's the mechanism for those attacks?
Different, to be honest. Very popular here in the region is something called a ransomware attack. I'm not sure if you know about it, when the attacker encrypts the environment and then asks money to decrypt that data. The thing is, what is happening in the region, ransomware is a little bit different these days because the attacker asks for ransomware twice. I will tell you how. They encrypt and then they also steal the data. So what is the trick? First time you need to pay to decrypt the data. Second time you need to pay for that data not to be leaked. That's such a good, and again, I don't want to encourage this, but this is a good business model because someone pays twice for the same thing.
Right.
And how that gets inside of the environment of the school is through phishing emails, USBs, normal attacks that we have seen across the region. The only reason why we are all a little bit worried is again because school is a safe place. We expect the attack on the enterprise. We expect the attack on the government. But school, that's such a secret place for all of us, no?
Yeah. How much of an issue are ransomware, those large institutional ransomware attacks? We hear so many publicized cases in other countries. In the US, for example, there have been some major cases of hospitals and things. Maybe we don't hear as much of them from here, but is that because people are just paying the ransom and keeping it quiet? Is there an expectation, if there's a ransomware attack here in the UAE, to inform the people who've been affected and whose data has potentially been stolen? What's the current approach here in the UAE when this happens?
There is no official recommendation on this, and this is the thing. People are sometimes quick to judge. You know, we would always say, don't pay the ransom. But the thing is, reality is that your data is locked. If someone takes the data, you're not going to work for months. So, and all of us would say, we don't cooperate with these, don't support the cybercrime, but many people do pay simply because they were not ready to deal with this. They simply, if you get that data from them, they will not be able to continue the operation. So many people do pay. Many people try to recover the data they can and then continue what they have. If you ask me, legally, there is still no obligation that you need to notify the general public about something happening. Often, general public know. It's also up to cooperation how they want to handle it. And by the way, this is not only here in the region, it's also across the world as well. You have a organization that would simply come and say, hey, this happened, we are working on it, this is the impact, this is what we were doing, not for this to happen again. And the majority of the organizations here in the UAE are doing the same. They will tell you, this happened, we are working on it, this is the impact, we are sorry, it will not happen again. But also you have the ones that simply don't want to do that because, look, you always have that reputational angle as well. Are you going to sign up the kid for a school next year, or are you going to come back to that hospital or that bank? Doesn't matter. It's always two-edged sword.
Yeah, it's a really difficult scenario. And, coming back to education, that some of the biggest institutions in the world are not immune to this. There was a recent very public hack at Columbia University that was focused on revealing everything from application data to academic records of former students. What can schools do to protect as you've said, they're taking such a huge amount of data. From the academic records of the students to their identifying documents to the parents' identifying documents, financial details. You think about just how much data that they have. What can the schools themselves do to protect themselves? Because you said, okay, yes, there's that being aware of phishing, but are there any other solutions they can put in place to make their systems more robust?
Can I tell you something very honest? That's a very good question. I think actually that the schools across this region, and specifically in UAE, do invest quite a lot in cybersecurity. I'm a cybersecurity expert and I work with significant amount of our universities and educational institutions, and they actually do a good job, to be very frank with you. Is there any place to improve? 100% yes. The anti-ransomware protection, education, encryption of the data. If you encrypt your data, no one else can encrypt it again. Paying someone else or outsource the cybersecurity operations to the trusted companies also helps simply because these companies can detect the attack faster. But the trick is why this is difficult for a school, because school is different than the enterprise. Think it like this. If you're working in an enterprise, company usually will give you a phone, they will give you a laptop. You will get a very closed environment, and something that we call the attack surface is smaller. When you're in school, every kid will bring their own phone. Every kid will bring their own tablet, laptops, and all that needs to be connected to the network. They need to access to the systems because that's how they work. And you cannot limit it as well because they have to go to the internet to download the things that they need to do the papers. So it is inevitable that although the schools are doing a very good job, there is a place for improvement, but it is also inevitable that these attacks will continue.
You know, I want to come back to the parents for just a moment, because we've been talking about that kind of typical scam of, hey, pay your fees and it's 10% off, and it's not actually coming from the school. It's just a similar enough email that you get tricked for a moment in haste. But what about unofficial communication channels, right? We have lots of parents that are connected to each other on social media, on WhatsApp groups. Are these kinds of channels vulnerable in any way as well?
100%. That's one of the biggest no-nos that we are saying here, honestly. We all adopted, whoever lives within UAE, we adopted WhatsApp as a way of communicating for everything, honestly. You can buy a car over WhatsApp, I guess. And even when you take a look, what is happening is that parents are organizing themselves over the WhatsApp as well, which means that, and then people are getting invited. Technically, you are inviting people that you don't know. And very often, admins of these groups are many, not one.
Yeah.
So everyone can jump in. So there are two types of attacks that we are seeing. Either through the WhatsApp, someone gets invited, who is pushing the agenda of buying certain things or simply luring people to come to a certain website.
Okay.
But also there is another one. You can simply, if you're an attacker and you're simply part of this group, you use the group to collect the data. And which data? We are using the group, for example, if we are planning the school trip, 100% tomorrow I will send you a fake email and giving you the options maybe to pay less. You would organize buying certain things again through the fake email. So it's a good place to harvest the data. Maybe you're not going to conduct the attack through the WhatsApp, but you're going to be very well prepared how to conduct the attack outside of the WhatsApp through different channels as well.
But I wonder, in a WhatsApp group, oftentimes people are being invited to the group. How is a bad actor even getting into a group like that?
If you have 35 admins on the group, who is stopping me to invite someone else that we are not aware of? Also, there are phones, please understand that 90% of the attacks on the phones these days are coming from the Android phones that don't have antivirus. And again, nothing wrong against Android. It's just simply the reality that they're simply today less protected than iPhones. So you have phones that are already hacked that can be controlled as well. And we are saying this. This is the reality of our lives in cybersecurity.
Right. Nikola, really interesting stuff. Thank you for spreading the message for any parents, students, educators out there to be a little bit more aware of some of the risks that they face as they head into the new academic year.
Thank you. It was a pleasure being here today with you.
That was the voice there of Nikola Kukoljac, who is Vice President of Solutions Architecture at Help AG, which is a cybersecurity arm of E& Enterprise.